Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asani Cayetano.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It is a Monday morning and it is officially 2 days away from Christmas, Marlene. How are you feeling?
Yes, very excited.
And with the cool, it makes things all the more cozy leading up to Christmas, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, yesterday it started to warm up a bit. I was just grateful that our forecasters gave us a bit of insight further ahead. And they told us there'd be the return of the chill by this week. But we have them on the line to give us the latest update. We have Crystal Rosales. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Now, we are talking about the well-timed cold front that we're experiencing.
Yes.
So tell us what's happening, Crystal.
Well, we do have improving conditions today after the passage of the cold front last night.
Okay. So what's our 24-hour forecast?
Variably cloudy skies, windy and cool conditions today, except for a few showers and isolated thunderstorms over southern areas and offshore.
Okay. And the winds?
The winds will be from the north to northwest at 10 to 20 knots with higher gusts.
Okay.
And the sea state will be rough, so a small craft caution is in effect.
So it definitely isn't advisable for some people to head out to sea.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about our temperatures for today? How is the cold front going to be affecting that?
Well, high temperatures today will reach 80 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast and inland and 72 in the mountains.
And for tonight?
Tonight will be 68 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 62 inland, and 58 in the hills.
Okay. So with the passage of the cold front, we'll have cooler temperatures for today and tomorrow?
Yes, slightly cooler, yes.
Slightly cool. But no rains like last week?
No, definitely not. It's going to be mainly fair with little to no rainfall for tomorrow.
Okay. And just how long is the cool weather going to stick around?
Well, at least for the rest of the week, the weather should be mild and mainly cool and fair.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that update.
You're welcome.
You have a great day and a great Christmas, too.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.
So that's a bit of good news, I
Christmas
guess.
gift from the Met Service
Yeah.
to all of Belize. The news has been delivered. You know, I was really thinking about it this weekend. I don't remember the last time we actually had cool weather on Christmas.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, I just didn't want it to rain on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Because this cold front, or for the past several days, we've seen intermittent showers.
Yeah.
Well, quite some showers, I should say,
Yeah.
that came along with the cool.
And the full rain that was with us last week, that
Yeah.
fine drizzle all day long. But it seems drier this time around, and in fact, that's what the forecast is saying, that it's mostly going to be cloudy and windy and cool.
Yeah.
But don't get too comfortable, because you probably have last-minute things that you have to do before Christmas, and it's not going to warm up before then. It's going to stay around this type of temperature right into Christmas, so we can all enjoy.
Yep.
That's right. All right, we're going to shift gears now to our eye opener for today. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. When making big changes in our lives, it can be easier to break it up into few small changes to avoid overwhelm. When we decide that it's time for big changes in our lives, it is wise to ease into them by starting small. Small changes allow us to grow into a new habit and make it a permanent part of our lives. whereas sudden changes may cause a sense of failure that makes it difficult to go on, and we are more likely to revert to our old ways. Even if we've gone that route and find ourselves contemplating the choice to start over again, we can decide to take it slowly this time and move forward. Life doesn't always give us the opportunity to anticipate or prepare for a big change, and we may find ourselves overwhelmed by what is in front of us. By choosing one thing to work on at a time, we focus our attention on something manageable, and eventually, we will look up to see that we have accomplished quite a bit.
So, change is the whole, right? Is the 100%, so to speak. And that's the end result of several steps that you will take in order to arrive at that complete whole. I think of the adage that was once, someone asked me a question once, right? They said, Isani, how do you eat an elephant, right? They say one bite at a time,
That's right.
So that if we're looking at the 100% as the total change or transformation that we're looking forward to, how do we arrive at that? By taking it one step at a time.
Yeah.
One decision leads to another in a systematic order that allows you to achieve that end result. And when we're looking at the idea of trying to achieve everything at once, we are more prone, in a manner of speaking, to becoming overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We see things as, this is too much, it's happening all at once. But if we step back a bit and say, you know what, I'll go in this particular direction, and I'll just do things on a gradual basis in order to really get to where I want to go. If it's a professional choice or a decision you're making on a long-term basis, or if it's a personal matter that you're dealing with, and you want to see some favorable outcome down the road, then my takeaway from the eye-opener is to be able to do so in a very orderly and systematic, but small, incremental way.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I didn't hear that I would expect would be important in this eye-opener is talking about patience.
Yeah,
Patience with your
course.
own self, because you don't just change overnight. You know, it takes a while to build a new habit, and it takes a while to undo the habits that you've already formed. And so it's not going to be perfect from day one. You know, this reminds me so much. It's very timely. You know, come the end of the year, people are going to have all new goals that they're going to set out for 2020.
Resolution time.
Yeah, it could be resolutions, you could call it goals, whatever it is. They want to improve themselves. And there's never anything wrong with improving any aspect of your life. But what happens a lot of times, and I see this, you know, you're going to lose 50 pounds and you're going to exercise every day and you're going to, you know, read a book once a week. You're going to save more. And you're also going to, I don't know, do many other things. So we take on this grand task, and when we can't follow through, because it's just impossible to undo everything that you've been doing, we give up on all of it. And that's where I really focused when I thought of the eye-opener, because when you give up on everything, you may have been successful in maybe just one of those tasks. Maybe you would have been able to save. Maybe you would have been able to probably just get in, you know, an hour of exercise every day, or change one meal that you have for the day towards your weight loss goals. All of these things, I think, we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves as to what we can do, and take our time. And that's probably the hardest part, because we really want it to happen just overnight.
In line with taking incremental steps to achieving a goal is the idea that to each step you make, you should be able to evaluate your progress, right? So that to arrive at the entirety of, or the whole, as we say, you want to be able to assess, either based on certain phases or based on each decision that you're making, right? And like I said, a lot of us, for whatever reason, we want to look ahead by making certain goals or resolutions or what have you, but at the same time, we don't really take time to organize how we're going to get there. So that the fact of it is that we look at the end result, but we don't look at the process itself And so looking at the end result without knowing how you're going to get there, obviously is going to overwhelm you. Where do I begin from? What do I need to do? Who do I need to connect with in terms of being able to show me a certain way or what have you? But if you look at it to say, well, you know what? I have 4 months to achieve this goal.
Yeah.
Let me break it down by month and see where I go from there.
Yeah.
And that should be...
And I mean, you know, you use the example of an overall goal where you're trying to move towards effective change.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way of doing it. And I think you can also be kind to yourself and recognize the changes that you make each day. You know, maybe you go one day without yelling at your kids. Maybe that's what you want to stop. You blow up on them, you feel bad, it makes you feel like a terrible parent. And you do it for one day. You've made that change for one day. It's a level of kindness that you have to have towards your own self. And that's so much harder than we think. We're actually kinder sometimes to other people than we are to ourselves. So you want to make some changes, go for it. But start small, start realistic, and of course be patient and be kind with yourself.
Definitely.
That's right. Now, of course, it is a Monday morning, and it's time for us to look at the big stories from last week and what we're looking forward to the week ahead. So we'll shift gears to the Eye on the News.
All right, Marlene. So we left off on Friday with the special sitting of the House of Representatives, the final one for this year.
Yeah.
And so it follows that we will be having a Senate meeting this morning at 10 o'clock as well. All right. And so on Friday, one of the critical aspects of what took place over the past several days and last week had to do with very inflammatory, disrespectful, completely obscene comment made by an individual who is the son of a sitting minister of government. And so there was, or there still is, a firestorm in the wake of those comments that were posted online, with several unions and organizations responding to what has been published, in a manner of speaking. And so while we delved a bit into that in a newscast on Friday, we haven't really had a chance to sit down and discuss what the impact or the ramifications of this kind of behavior, attitude is, particularly to persons within the media in this case. You would know that last week there was the arraignment of the son of another government minister in respect of a domestic violence situation in Belmopan. And out of that came a social media post by our media colleague, Louis Wade, who had mentioned something to the effect of ministers and their privileged kids, right? And that post went up on Facebook, and the son of another minister found it fit for him to respond to that particular comment. Now, to kind of break it down a bit, right? From what I read, from the answer when I looked at the post prior to the response, it did not single out any one particular minister's son. That was as...
The post by Wade?
Yes.
Okay.
It was as open and as blanket a statement as one can make.
Okay.
You have so many elected officials who sit in the House of Representatives who have ministerial portfolio and have sons. That could have been directed at any one person. So for this individual to take it upon himself to answer in such vile and disgusting manner, it says a lot. Now, as I mentioned, quite a number of organizations have responded in the wake of this comment. But I will choose to look at it, just to digress a little bit here, I will choose to look at it from that of the family. When you become an adult, you enjoy freedom of expression, right? You're able to say certain things and be able to stand behind it as a man or a woman. But at the same time, there is a moral and an ethical responsibility for the things that you say and do as an adult, right? So that even though your parents may not be able to spank you or chastise you otherwise, parents are expected to at least put you back in order, put you in line. I can say for myself as a man and as an adult that while I do enjoy those freedoms of expression, if I were to say or do something that is untoward or completely out of character, while my dad may not be able to spank me, he will be the first to call me aside and say, you know what, check yourself or fix that situation. And then there's also the idea, and this is from a traditional point of view, the idea of the family name, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
You are bringing our family name into ill repute. You are disrespecting this particular group of people, this kinship, right? So those are just things on a familial aspect as a digression. But going back now to what we're discussing here, this individual is a member of the Public Service Union, first and foremost. So he belongs to a wider group of people who have a similar purpose under a particular union. So the PSU has come forward. It was one of the first organizations to come forward to completely rebuke and distance itself and speak out against this post. However, there is no mention of any kind of perhaps punitive or disciplinary action to be taken by the union, and I know it's not for them, it's for the Public Service Commission to deal with. But I was thinking in my mind, I'm saying, look, in any other society, in any other jurisdiction, this person would have been made to answer for that automatically. Particularly, it's because he should know better. That's first and foremost. We're not dealing with a kid here who blurts stuff out without really thinking. We're looking at an adult who has a public office as well, and who is tasked with being able to carry himself in a certain professional manner, online, at work, wherever he is, right? And so those are some of the things that I'm looking at. And I haven't heard of any internal measure to be taken. Now, I'm understanding that the Wade family are looking at options in terms of taking this thing to court, yes. But in terms of what will happen around the workplace or what happens next in terms of this individual, we're yet to see where that goes. So that's just a nutshell going into this weekend and what continues to be the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to say, this is not surprising to me. Can I just say that? And not necessarily pointing out an individual. It goes beyond who says it and what was said, because this really speaks to the misogyny that we have seen in our society, the way women are talked about, the way she was an easy target in this particular situation.
Who, by the way, had nothing to do with the initial post.
Absolutely nothing to do with what was posted. And I do have to make a correction, because Louis Wade did mention names of ministers and called them entitled. I mean, it's I think if in this day and age we all develop a level of resilience to be called names, especially with social media. But I think for me, what I've not heard in the discussion, let me start there, because it's a good thing that everyone has come out and spoken out against what was said. But it's not enough. And what we are missing, because you're talking about consequences, is legislation. What we're missing is putting in place protective measures where no woman, a journalist, a pastor's wife, has to walk away from comments like that. You're talking about the most grotesque type of crime being committed to a woman. And there are no consequences legally, as far as we've seen, and I'm sure Pastor Wade is going to explore that further, that anyone can levy. I can threaten to kill you, and you can take me to court. If I touch my gun and threaten to kill you, you're going to go to jail. But if someone threatens me with something that comes as close to murder, there's nothing I can do about it. And I think that really shows a gaping hole in our legislative system. And so we can't just keep on putting out press releases. And we can't just keep on saying, oh, that's so terrible. Because you have a daughter, Isani. If that was your daughter, and I know people like to move away from talking about your personal family as examples, but that's where you feel it. Because other than that, and unfortunately, that's where we are as a society. But the best thing we can say is that by the time your daughter is an adult, that if somebody makes a threat like that against her, that there are consequences that they will face.
And I'm glad that you went in that particular direction, because it highlights the fact that we are woefully lacking in being able to put into place the cybercrime regulations for bullying and what have you. And it always takes instances like this to highlight the fact that we're way behind on what we're supposed to do in terms of regulating and overseeing the social media space. Because everybody, for whatever reason, feels the need to operate carte blanche in what they say and what they do in the online world, as if though that is a totally separate reality from what is happening in one-on-one contact. And I think we need to catch up. We need to do some serious catching up in terms of being able to bring things to par.
And that for me was a part of the disappointment that I saw on Friday. Yes, it's great that everyone spoke out against it, but who's going to bring the bill? Say you're going to bring the bill. Don't just get up and say it's terrible. It is terrible, and we want to hear that. But go a step further, because I think the exhaustion in our society today is just that people are tired of the rhetoric. And if you're not going to move from rhetoric to action, then it really gets exhausting to just hear it over and over.
I don't know if this is a stretch. Again, I'm just thinking here. So I was also made to understand by a colleague who attended Friday's session that the minister left before the adjournment, and this matter was brought up on adjournment. I'm not necessarily thinking in terms of damage control to save face. I'm thinking, look, perhaps as someone who is entrusted with public office, that I should be there. I should get up and address the issue, despite the fact that it may look bad on me and my family based on what is being said. As opposed to walking away. That's the easier thing to do, is to just absent yourself from that discussion. Perhaps it would have been more manly in a manner of speaking to be able to face the music. Right? But that's just me thinking once again at the scope and the gravity of the situation here.
Well, you know, moving on from this, because we do have a bit of a chit chat about this coming up in our morning tea that we want you to weigh in on. We will see what follows. I only hope that this anger and this disgust doesn't fade, and that we move to the point where we can take action. So that was the first point that I wanted to touch on. The second is the overall economic performance of the country. We're in the fourth quarter, we're wrapping up the fourth quarter of the year. And so a few weeks ago, we had mentioned that based on the second and third quarter performances, that we were in a recession. Right? And so there is optimism. The Prime Minister has gone on record to say that he's looking forward to a change in the economic situation. But at the same time, too, the Central Bank of Belize has released some figures I was made to understand in terms of the overall debt as it stands. And we are $3.5 billion in the hole. And this is local and international indebtedness. And notwithstanding the fact that I believe it's like $169 or so million has been paid towards that particular debt, it's still a drop in the bucket when you look at several $1 billion over time. And so it'll be interesting to see what, if any, progress is made in terms of going through the fourth quarter. Those numbers, of course, will be released by the Statistical Institute of Belize in the weeks or months ahead. That's just the outlook. All right. So that concludes our Eye on the News for this morning. All right, and with the morning, the Eye on the News out of the way, it's time for us to shift gears to the morning tea. This is where we look to you for feedback. And of course, you are welcome to share your comments on our live stream on Facebook. You can also send us messages, or you want to make a post and hashtag us, go ahead. We just want to hear what your thoughts are. And for today, the discussion is, as a public figure, should you expect scrutiny of your family members? And where should the boundary lie?
There should be scrutiny. There should be. I mean, sometimes we want to distance away or draw ourselves farthest away from the public eye. But by virtue of the fact that you've offered yourself for public office, then that means everyone is watching. Yeah. And we live in a critical society where everyone watches with a microscope as opposed to just standing on the sidelines and viewing things for what they are. We tend to scrutinize everything, more so when you are a public figure. So it's a difficult thing to divorce yourself from. It's, to me, a matter of accepting that, look, yes, I am a pastor, or yes, I am a government minister, and so society will also be looking at you, my kids, to do the right thing and to uphold a certain integrity.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and I think one of the things that jumps out to me is the fact that when you run for office specifically, you run not necessarily, we don't in this country run on credentials, we run on personality. And a part of your personality is the type of family person that you are. So naturally, the extension of you, your family, also becomes a part of the focus. Yeah. If we were talking about your credentials, then we could go back to saying, okay, well, look at what you achieved in this workplace or in this office or whatnot. But unfortunately, that's not the society we're in. So you put yourself forward as a personality, and that personality comes with extensions. I think, though, just to because we started the conversation earlier, I think scrutiny is distinctly different from facing consequences. And I think that's where I really want to make a distinction. We're going to talk about how a minister's 8-year-old son does in school, off limits. There's no need for it. It has nothing to do with it. But I think if there's a wrongdoing by an adult child and there are legal consequences that should follow, by all means there should be scrutiny. And I think that is just a welcomed, that is a part of what you have welcomed into your life. I do think it was very interesting last week because while Castro's son's comments have dominated the headlines, we did see the issue with Minister Holtz's son in a domestic issue. And I was thinking to myself after I saw that interview, how he went off on all the things that the media hasn't covered. And I really found it interesting for two reasons. One, just on a fact based, we don't get all the reports that are made. First of all,
it never made the news for whatever
And I do receive
reason.
the media reports, and I don't recall seeing a report given to the media by the police that included or identified Minister
any of those instances.
Holtz. So it was very disingenuous to get on TV and say that. Secondly, we do have precedent. In fact, one of the biggest stories for this year was Mayor Trapp with his home invasion case, where we went out and we covered that story extensively. And he gave us a first-hand interview. So it's not that you don't cover public officials. We can cover based on the factual information that's proposed. So that's one issue. But I think that we need to ensure, and there are certain cases that will naturally get the attention of the public. We call it, the story has legs. One, if it's a sensational, totally out of this world crime, which we saw much of that this year.
Unfortunately.
And so people pay attention because it's new. It's not it's not what people are accustomed to seeing on a daily basis. And if there's a public or well-known or well-connected person, and there's a reason for that, because people have an assumption based on their real-life experiences that this world isn't fair, and that different people get different treatment, and different people get processed at a different pace. Maybe if you get in an accident, your urine sample won't be collected, even though people saw you drinking before. Maybe you should be charged for 4 crimes, but you only get charged for 1. And so people pay attention because they almost have that expectation that that's what's going to happen.
May I jump in quickly?
Yeah.
Marlene, to me, and I'm speaking from a personal point of view here, it goes back to the idea of more and more of us feeling and believing that we are entitled. We no longer expect that our action has an equal opposite reaction or a consequence. We figure we can say things and do things because this is who I am and this is what I expect and this is what
Or that I'll get away
society
with
should
it.
give me. Yeah. It's not like, you know what? I have a sense of obligation to be able to do the right thing and expect the right thing to be done in return. It's like, let me take or let me do what I can, and whoever feels a way about it, that's on them because this is due to me or this is owed to me. And I think a lot of us walk around with that air of superiority because we feel as if though we are entitled. And that's, I don't know if it's a manifestation of what we're seeing here.
Well, you know, and this is where, I mean, this conversation could go much broader because, you know, the society we live in is really just because of what people have grown accustomed to seeing. It's becoming cultural norms. And I do disagree. I don't think everyone walks around entitled because I think the guy who's worried about being checked every time he steps outside because of the way he's dressed doesn't necessarily go feel entitled. There are parts of society that has that behavior, but not all.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that having the public pay attention to a case that involves a minister's son is only natural. And I go back to the whole personality thing, and it's because people are paying attention. They're paying attention to see if me, who has no connection, no name, no extra money in my pocket, no possibility of getting a top shot lawyer, if I'm going to be held to the same standards as those who do have. And that's why they pay attention. And so, like I said, public scrutiny has to be differentiated from facing consequences. Because I'm not saying let's dive into the lives of family members for no reason. But if they do commit a wrongdoing, then yes,
It's fair game
we
that
do
you
need to
would-
pay
yeah.
attention. And the public will pay attention. And we're going to ensure that we bring the truth as the media. So that's what I thought about that issue.
It's a great tea, actually. And so we want to encourage persons online or elsewhere to chime in on the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, it's something to think about. It could be you in that particular situation, and what would you do? So,
All right, so let's hear your thoughts, Facebook friends. Jump online and share with us. But in the meantime, we got to get moving into our show.
this morning we are starting off with a conversation with my good friend, Commissioner of Police and ACP Alden Dawson, as we discuss Christmas security and, of course, the end-of-year review for 2019.
All right, and the second part of our show, we're going to learn about a brand new project. It's a book, actually. It's called The Critical Thinking Project, and we have the author joining us.
And our final segment is something that I will learn a lot from in terms of learning how to gift wrap. All right, so we're going to have on set this morning with us the founder of Xavier, I think. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. All right, and it's a Christmas feature on creative gift wrapping. So that's our final segment.
All right, so that's what we got in store for this morning. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll get right into the show, so stay tuned.
With over 100 years of service excellence, reverence in death.
And welcome back. We're officially in our first segment of the morning show today. And with us on set is Commissioner of Police Chester Williams. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Assistant Commissioner of Police Alden Dawson. Good morning.
Good
Mr. Dawson.
morning.
Gentlemen, good morning. Where do we begin from in terms of, firstly, the end of year review? I know a lot has transpired over the course of the past 12 months in terms of either citizen security matters or issues of crime and violence or overall safety. Where do you want to begin from in terms of looking back at 2019?
Well, I would like to first and foremost give thanks to the Almighty. I believe that He has blessed us very much with health, strength, and courage to have been able to police a very difficult year. As I've always said to my commanders, we are indeed policing in tough times. We're seeing a new breed of criminals. And I believe it has a lot to do with how we're raising our children. And for the most part, you find that society raises the children in such in a manner that is that makes them to be very much uncontrollable, and expect that the police should be there at all time, that whenever they manifest that uncontrollable behavior or do things out of the ordinary, that we should be there. But that is not so. There are always so much of us. And as much as we may organize ourselves in such a way that we can cover as much area as we can, the police cannot be in every place at the same time. And while yes, we have seen different types of crime this year, and some very heinous ones. I can still proudly say that when we look at our overall performance for the year, we are at this point achieving our 10% reduction in major crime. We're not going to achieve our 10% reduction in murders, but we're not going to surpass last year's figure either. We are still a few numbers and not according to Dwayne report on Friday. And I had to ask Dwayne to tell me who are the additional 6 persons that he killed, because his reporting on the news on Friday is totally inaccurate. And so we are still, I believe, 10 below last year's figure in terms of our murder count. So that will not give us a 10% reduction. But at the end of the day, if we finish the year with a number below last year, then I still believe that we would have achieved something where that is concerned. It is not what we would have wanted it to be, but it is still a reduction. And again, I want to say that for the past years, the most dominant types of murders were the gang-related murders. And you would see this year, the gang-related murders are the lowest. And those are the crimes that police can, to some extent, contain. So it shows that our efforts is indeed paying off, because we have been able to contain the crimes that are committed by the gang members. Now you'll find that most of the crimes, the murders being committed, are committed by persons who would have expected would be of a more reasonable mind in the domestic settings. And then we have those who go out and consume alcohol and lose their sanity, or lose that ability to be able to reason things out and end up killing others. And we have situations where friends on friends, where friends are killing friends, and these are the kidnapping and then later on found dead cases. Most of these cases are where friends take a friend because of some internal issue, and then they go and kill them and dispose of their bodies. And so these are new things for us, and we have to find ways as to how we can address these issues. And I have Mr. Dawson here, who is the commander of Belize City and Belize District, and I must commend him and his officers for the good work that they have done this year, because again, Belize District used to be the focus of attention in terms of having over 70% of the country's murder.
Yeah.
And this year, Belize District do not have that amount. We, in Belize District, is actually the saving grace in terms of the other regions being up. Like, for example, the Kaya region is up by 100% where murders are concerned.
Yeah.
And so the reduction that we enjoyed in Belize District is observed by the Kaya region. And then we also have Stan Creek District, the southern region, which again is up in murders, I think, by 2 compared to last year. But then also we have the northern region, which is also down by almost 50%. So we have Belize, the eastern region and the northern region that perform extremely well this year. And then those were the 2 regions that used to be up there with murders. And then now we have the western region and the southern region that are up with murders. And so
let me interject and ask a question quickly. You've identified the Kaya district or the western jurisdiction as having gone up 100% in terms of acts of violence pertaining to murders. Does this mean then that we're now going to see a deployment of additional officers in that area? Or how do you propose to police such an expansive, largest district in the country?
Well, indeed, yes, we have to look at our deployment in the Kaya region because, again, the Kaya district is second to Belize district in population. And like you rightly said, it's the largest district in the country in terms of land mass.
Yeah.
And so the people of the Kaya region are spread out and have many remote areas like the Billy White, the Duck Run areas, France Eddy areas. These are areas that we do not have police officers stationed within those areas.
Yeah.
And again, the France Eddy area has been a very problematic area for us this year in terms of the violent nature of crime between the Central American immigrants who are living within that area. Just last week, we have a murder there over jealousy. One man killed another man over a woman. You know, so we have to find ways as to how we can go into those areas more often with a view to see how we can police it to try to keep the crime down at a minimal. Yes, I know from the operations desk, Mr. Vidal has done a lot in terms of putting out operation teams in the different remote areas, going after persons who we believe are involved in criminal activities, and that have also helped us significantly. But again, most of our focus have been in Belize District and Belize City in particular, because we're trying to see how we could contain the gang violence, believing that by containing the gang violence, we would have a significant reduction in the murder count. But we contain that, and then we see the alcohol-related, the domestic-related just went up. So we have to find a way how to deal with those other types of murders.
You know, Commissioner, I think you started off saying something very important, and I think we can all be in agreement. It is difficult times, I think, for the country in looking at the situation of crime, and it was a job that you took on knowing that this was going to be a very arduous task. I appreciate the talk about numbers, and I think that, you know, we can only measure where we go based on numbers. And while you talk of a reduction in Belize District, and an increase in other places, there's one question I have in terms of, are we looking at a reduction or are we looking at displacement? Because we do have gang-related murders in Dangriga, we have gang-related murders in other districts. And in fact, sometimes I think we've even connected some of these people in your very reports back to Belize City. So is it that we have reduced the numbers in Belize, or have these criminal elements moved beyond this district?
Marlene, I don't think it is displacement, and for the simple fact that if you had heard what I said to the people of Dangriga when I had the town hall here, that the crimes being committed in Dangriga, the murders, were committed by people from Dangriga. Yes, some of them may have moved to Belize City for a year or two and then go back to Dangriga. That does not make them Belize City. They are from Dangriga. And again, if we look at most of the gang elements in Belize City, they're not from Belize City. They are from our district. Many of the gang people in Belize City are from Dangriga, Gales Point, Manante, Punta Gorda, and other little villages outside of Belize City. And they moved to Belize City, and probably they got that influence from leaders in Belize City But at the end of the day, they are not from Belize City, they are from out district. So it's just a matter of some of them going back home, but that does not make it...
And take the culture with
exactly,
them, the
with
gang
them.
culture.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that brings me to another question, because if we're talking numbers, one of the numbers I'm interested in is what has happened in 2019 in terms of reinforcement of forces? Because to be fair to you, we can keep on looking at the police department and saying, what are you doing? How are you going to fix crime or reduce crime? But are you being given the resources? Have you gotten more officers? Have you instituted new strategies and got funding for that as well, and specialized units?
Yes.
Tell me the growth in the offices. Start there.
The truth is, we would never have all the resources that we need.
Agreed.
But at the end of the day, we do appreciate the fact that the government do try, and we have a minister who is very much involved in trying to get us what we need to be able to do our duties. Yes, the numbers are not where we want it to be.
Yeah.
I always try to compare us to the Bahamas. Bahamas population is little less than Belize's population, and the Bahamas police force have a total of 3,000 police officers plus 2,000 tourism police officers. So a total of 5,000 police officers are in Bahamas.
Yeah.
For us in Belize, we have 2,200 police officers that include tourism police officers. So our numbers is not where we want it to be.
Yeah.
We currently have a recruit squad in training. They're currently out doing on-the-job training, and they're deployed across the country for the
So
for 3
by what
months.
percentage would you say the force has increased in this year?
Has increased this year.
Yeah.
We have decreased this year. We're hoping that we'll get that increase next year when the recruits pass out.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that we have not...
the size of the force decreased
Yes.
in 2019.
We have not had, prior to this recruitment that we have in training, we have not had any recruit squad in over 3 years.
Okay.
So the department numbers was depleting. So we're now trying to bring it up with the recruit squad.
Is there a
this
reason?
this is a critical. Go ahead.
Is there a reason why over the past 3 years you haven't been able to grow your numbers?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the government financial situation. So, but we try to, as best as we can, do more with less. But it is difficult because when it comes to policing, we have to stretch ourselves across the country. And I firmly believe that these one-man police stations we have in the different rural areas, we need to evolve from that. We have surpassed those now. So my directive is that there'll be no more one-man substation. Each substation outside in the rural areas will have a minimum of 2 police officers.
Commissioner,
that way they can patrol together.
You are highlighting a very critical issue that perhaps we've missed over the course of time. We have been seeing a very steady issue in crime, a very consistent public outcry about crime, but with a decrease in the force and no growth in the past 3 years, clearly you were not given the additional resources. And just to be clear, have you made a request for additional manpower?
Well, I was not the commissioner then. When I became commissioner, I made the request, and I got the approval for 1 recruit squad. The approval was for 190. We ended up taking 217. And even though it took more than the approved number, there was no issue with it. We have currently 213 in training. So we're hoping that we'll get it at least 210. And with that should help us significantly in terms
Let me
of
ask a
making
question
up our
here
numbers.
and bring in ACP Dawson. All of what we're discussing speaks to citizen security. And while if we're saying that the numbers in Belize City have gone down in terms of murder, the question I would want to ask you, are Belize City residents any safer today than they were a year ago or 2 years ago?
I believe that what we are doing in the street, we continue to study the trend of crime, and we try to put the police where the most needed based on trend and pattern. And we hope that by doing so, the citizens will at the same time look at their very own safety and assist the police as best as they could, and so that we could assist them in return. so that would make them as safe as we could make them.
Do you see the involvement in more and more residents in terms of working with the police? Because there's always this sort of stigma, or there's this position where we don't cooperate, or that is them, this is us. Has there been sort of a breaking of that barrier where you now see persons working closer with the department?
For the last 10 months, thereabout, we have seen some breakthrough. It's not as fast or as much as we wanted. I know it will take some time because that confidence have to build back.
Yeah.
It will take some time, and it's coming around slowly. We have been getting some assistance lately.
From looking at 2019, what number of, and I don't know if you keep these statistics, but I'll venture to ask, from the crimes that have been committed, how many charges have been levied?
We do have that stats, but I do not have it on hand. When we release our overall crime statistics for the year, we'll include those in it. But I am sure that our arrest figures is also up compared to last year.
Yeah. What was it last year?
I do not remember offhand either.
Do you feel that we're doing well in that department?
Well, not as well as we'd want to do. But again, as I've always said, an investigation is only as good as the witnesses who cooperate with the police. And we still have that issue where witnesses are reluctant to come forward or to even give statements to the police. And so while we may know who commit many of the crimes, we are unable to prosecute them due to lack of witness cooperation.
And moving from charges to actual convictions, do we have those numbers?
Again, we should be having some of those as it relates to the magistrate court level that the police prosecutes. When it comes to the Supreme Court level, that is prosecuted by the DPP office. But again, I'm sure that you would know, you have heard that we have had many convictions this year for murders. So the outcry out there was that the murder conviction was 3%, which had never been so. It has always been above 3%. But this year, I'm sure that the numbers of conviction will be more compared to last year.
What was last year's conviction?
Even with the summary offenses, we have seen increase, and a large increase in conviction, because we do what we call a ComStat on a monthly basis, and that include our statistic for conviction. And every month we see an increase in conviction. So I'm sure at the end of the year we will see an increase in conviction.
In convictions.
Summary.
But we definitely look forward to those numbers, because I think oftentimes we isolate numbers, and especially looking at the murder count. And I personally have not been interested in talking about how many people have lost their lives 1 year. I think we need to look at where we are globally, and we know that even if there is a reduction by 10, we will still be one of the top countries. We'll have one of the highest murder rate per capita in the world again. Can we agree to that?
Well, that is true. We'll be up there, yes.
We were at 35
yes.
per 100,000
yes.
last year. I think that had made us third at one point?
It's not third, no. It's not
Well,
third.
I'll go back and check. I don't have my numbers with me, but that's one of the things that I monitor regularly, because we can talk about the number of murders, but I think when we look at where we are and compared to the rest of the world, some countries have as low as 6 or 10
But
per
again,
100,000.
Again, to Marlene, while many may want to impute that to the police, it is not the police, it is society.
No, definitely. I'm not saying the police are out there who are
know.
committing these murders.
I said some people
but
may want to.
You are our remedy to the situation.
No, not
And-
fully. We are your remedy to find the persons who commit them. Yes, we do.
But you do have a level of protection
Yes,
that you should levy.
let me explain again, because there is a misconception. Many people believe that the police can stop murders. And as I've said before, many of the murders being committed are not those that the police can readily prevent. And those are the ones that are committed in the domestic setting, those from alcohol. And so if we want to see a reduction in our murder count, we really need to look at how we as a society behave, our lifestyle. When you look at the countries that have the lowest murder count in the world, look at how they live, the social environment in terms of alcohol, nightlife, and these sort of things, you'll see that it is very limited. We in Belize, we want to drink all the alcohol in the world. We want to party all day, all night, and drink to the extent that we don't even know ourselves. And then when that occurs, then we go out and do things that we would normally do, but they don't have the alcohol, and expect that the police will be there to monitor you.
See,
It cannot work.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I've always asked the question, if when a crime is committed, is there always a look into what type of drug or drinking they may have been exposed to before that? And that goes across the board, because we do have to look at those numbers. That is a situation that goes untold. But as the commissioner, the man at the helm, have you sat down with the relevant authorities to try to get this issue under control? Let me complete it. We have a National Drug Abuse Control Council that's under the Ministry of Health that is to work with addictions. We have looking at the liquor licensing that takes place. And we can look in the city, but we know the problem is bigger in smaller villages, where in fact that might be the only revenue going into the village. We can look at how much alcohol is being brought in. We can look at consumption levels. Have you taken this conversation beyond saying, oh, well, you know, it's alcohol induced, but to another level where we can work together and address it?
Marlene.
And I know it's a highly political issue.
No, I have. If you recall, I think it was in the month of September, I met with all the liquor licensing board chairman and the mayors. Well, not all the mayors were present, but those majority of them were. And I tried as best as I can to collaborate with them, explain to them what's the situation, give them the figures. And at the meeting, they all said, we're going to work together, we'll work with you. And after the meeting was over and they went back to respective jurisdiction, they went right back to their old selves again. The issue...
Have we cracked down on public drinking?
Yes, we do that a lot. Mr. Dawson will tell you that every day we're out there enforcing the law where public drinking is concerned. But again, there is some reluctance on some police officers to prosecute those persons who are public drinking, but would just discourage them. And we have said to them, we need to go beyond discouraging and start prosecuting people for it. And I listened earlier to yourself and Isani as you were discussing this issue as it relates to entitlement, or people walk around believe that they're entitled to do certain things. And Isani was right in the sense that many people who you looked at as influential people, they are the ones who want to park the vehicle on the roadside with the liquor on top of the vehicle and drinking. And when the police go after them, they want to call me. Commissioner, the police, I don't allow abiding. It's not because if you are law abiding, I tell them the police have a job to do. I'm not going to interfere. Because at the end of the day, I cannot be telling my officers to enforce the law, and then when they do it, I tell them not to do it. You know, and some of them got upset, but at the end of the day, they believe that because they are up there in society, they're entitled to sit or stand on the street corner and drink the alcohol, and the police should not tell them anything. And we cannot be like that. Yeah. It needs to change.
May I ask a question from another? And I totally agree with you in terms of the position you are taking. However, another question would be, when you look at cracking down on quality of life situations, because I think public drinking falls within that
quality
scope,
of life, yeah.
Right? You would encourage your officers to proceed with prosecuting these quality of life offenses. And we're looking at a system where we're already complaining of a heavy backlog and what have you, or the judicial system being bogged down by all of these, what I would call trivial matters. I hate to have to downplay it like that, but when you look at a $25 fine versus getting to the bottom of a more heavier offense, then one certainly outweighs the other. Do you think that by going in that direction, where you're now encouraging these men and women to proceed with charging and going to the magistrate's court to follow through would only serve to weigh down an already weighted down system?
Sorry. Majority of our major incidents stem from minor incidents. Majority from murder, look at them. Murder. Mr. X-ray killed. Where was he? Was in front of a Chinese drinking a Guinness. Who killed him? Somebody came on a bicycle with a light, with a bell, and shoot him. If the police had arrested public drinking and deal with that bicycle offense, we wouldn't have that murder. So we looking at the more to stop the petty offense, and if we could cut the petty offense at that level, we would have no major ones.
I read a post on Facebook the other day, and the post said, Chester Williams want to focus and harass people for public drinking and loitering. You need to stop the murders them. Dude, that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because like Mr. Dawson said, 90% of our murders that occur, you ask the question, where was the victim? The answer is on the street drinking.
As we describe as socializing.
Yes, exactly.
Socializing with friends,
Right.
very common term we use
Yeah.
in the news, when we can just say they were drinking.
You understand me? Yeah.
But the issue I'm getting back at too is, you know, he spoke of, Isanisari spoke of police officers pursuing quality of life crimes. But the first question you will have to answer is, are you keeping your police officers accountable?
Yes, we do. And
Because you do know that there's a heavy drinking culture. And this is anecdotal. I don't have the facts, but I'm sure you would agree. There's a heavy drinking culture among people with high stress jobs, police officers included.
well, Marlene, I have a very high stress job. I can't tell you how alcohol tastes.
But you're an
Speak for
isolated
yourself.
case. And I mean, you are welcome to disagree with me, but would you
No,
say
but
that
I do
there
agree
is?
with you. It is true. And we try as best as we can to see what we can do for our officers. Just over the weekend, we had a situation in Punta Gorda where a police officer was in a bar drinking, and other police officers went because they got a call, and they detained the policeman. And his response to the officers who went for him was, well, you're lucky when you come for me because I was just about to go home and I'm going to shoot my wife. Right? So that's a serious matter. And so I have directed the officer in charge of Punta Gorda to have kept him in custody over the weekend. And then we'll see what we can do this morning to arrange some sort of counseling for him. And as a commissioner, I can add a mandatory counseling. So that is what we're going to do in this case, that he must undergo certain hours of mandatory counseling before he'll be allowed to hold a firearm again, if any at all. But like you said, Marlene, it is indeed stressful for many of our officers, and sometimes the weight that is on our shoulder is overlooked by the public because we have to deal with all sorts of things. Yeah. And as a commissioner, sometimes I wish I wouldn't have to deal with police issues and try to focus more on the public issues in terms of strategizing to fight crime. Yeah. But I have to find myself dealing with both. Yeah. And the police issues do take away a lot from my time in terms of focusing on crime fighting strategies. But we try to find ways and means how we can still deal with both of them without taking too much from either one.
At the end of this year, we start a brand new decade. Not just a new year, a brand new decade. And we can sit here and talk of the discrepancy of 1-2 human beings who have died or lost their life. Or we can talk about what will be done differently to reduce the number of families who have to go through that devastating loss, for whatever reason. You have highlighted, I think, what is a critical issue of being under-resourced. And while you are saying we're looking at, what, 300? Maybe about 300 more officers coming out into the force, I'm sure you would agree that's not enough.
No, it will not be enough.
Moving forward, what are we going to be doing differently about crime? The criminal elements they've devolved into a whole new manner of committing crimes, going into homes when people are there, going in and robbing and raping as well, going in when there's a security camera or a security guard, all the protective measures that the public has thought would be enough is no longer enough. So if their methodology is changing, I would want to believe that our crime fighting strategies are changing as well.
Yes, of course, we do have to make adjustments moving into next year. And I think for the most part, what we need to do in the districts is to replicate what we're doing in Belize City. Because in Belize City, it is working. Yes, we can still tweak around our Belize City strategy to make it more better. But our district, we need to look seriously in terms of our deployment. One, is the number of officers we have in the districts adequate to police their respective area? The answer is no. And so we have to look at that. In our budget for next year, we have included another recruit squad. We're hoping that that will be approved. And if approved, then we can take in another maybe 190 police officers to add to our numbers. But in the time being, we have to ensure that we constantly go at those issues that are creating the problem for us. The alcohol, the domestic, and the gang issues. We have to remain on those, but tweak it more, and I think that we need to be more forceful with the alcohol issue, because that is the main issue. And working more closely with the other organizations like NDAC, Women's Department. I must say that the Special Envoy have been right there with us, pretty much on board in terms of looking at issues involving families and women and children. And she is very much concerned. If a matter of fact, we're meeting again, I think early January, the 9th of January to be exact, I think, to discuss the whole issue as it relates to the cybercrime legislation and to see how we can do more to protect families. And so she have also brought along with her the Ministry of Human Development, Ms. Judith Alpuche, who again, I must say, is very much involved in terms of looking at the family issues. Yes, there is more that we can garner from the Ministry of Human Development, and I'm hoping that next year we'll see more coming out of them in terms of working with us to be able to address the issues in a family setting, because we have to really and truly address the issue of domestic violence.
All right. And tips for the Christmas season. We know this is I know we're running out of time. This is a time where we see a spike in particular crimes, and the police department always offers public advice ahead of the season. But catch us up, of course, things we can do to keep ourselves a bit safer in our homes as we move around the country.
We continue to say to people, you buy these new equipment, these new gadgets, avoid throwing the box or the container in front of your homes. You attract these, I see a big 50-inch television set box in front of the home. I know that piece of item is in that home, Try to avoid taking out large sum of money. This time and age, I think we are well within that card system, that credit card.
Yeah.
You put your money into the card, you pay the money to the card, and use the card, it's much safer.
Yeah.
Again, jewelries, try not to expose as much as you want to. Say, I buy my piece of jewelry to expose it, can attract, a criminal, Expensive phones, pulling out in isolated areas. These things do, don't leave your gift bag on your car seat, Try and park your car in areas where people are and not in isolated areas.
Where it's well lit as well.
Where it's lighted,
And we also encourage you that when you go to the bank, do not walk out with your cash in hand, and try to go and shop in groups, right? Don't go by yourself, especially if you're going in a remote area. So those are things that we try to encourage. But just to add a bit more, Marlene, we have the Safe City project that we're doing through BTL in terms of we're looking at the cameraizing the city, adding more to what we already have in existence. And that is going well for us. We will be having the facial recognition feature, the vehicle license plate reader as well. And that will go a long way with us in terms of fighting crime. We also have the Taiwan project coming up very shortly. We're getting 100 cameras from Taiwan as well. And those cameras will also have those features. So we'll have deployed across Belize City a number of cameras that will be able to help us to deal more with the criminal elements. And we want to see how we can replicate that in the districts. The system through BTL will also be open to the public in a sense that business places or even private homeowners can go to BTL and they can purchase the camera, and it is placed in front of their home, and you just pay a fee to BTL. Right, so again, that's another added feature that will come with the Safe City projects, and that will be done not only in Belize City, but anywhere across the country. So I want to encourage business places and even private homeowners who may have the means that they can also tap into the Safe City project with a view to see how they can work with us in making their environment safe. The minister have said that 2019 was the year of technology for the police, and indeed we have achieved a lot in terms of technology, but not where we want to be as yet. We still have a lot more to do. And he have said to me just last week, he said, Commissioner, 2020, we need to continue to focus on technology to see how we can bring the police department more up to date where technology is concerned. So I'm grateful to see that, yes, through his ministry, he's also helping us with a view to see how we can use technology more. And we're also seeing that more and more we're sending out DNA samples abroad to deal with cases, complex cases, and as much as it is costly for us, we find the means to still send them, because at the end of the day, what we want is to ensure that we can prosecute successfully persons who are accused of committing crime, especially now in the absence of that human element who want to come forward and give evidence before the court of law. So these are things that we'll continue to do next year with a view to see how we can make the residents of this country much safer.
Well, we want to thank you for coming in. We know you're very busy, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you too.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll have a conversation with author Delmer Ziv. So please stay tuned. And we are back, moving into our second conversation for this morning as we are joined by educator and author Delmer Zib, here to talk about his new publication. And it's called E-Critical Thinking Project. Very interesting. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Delmar.
All right. So Delmer, it's great to have you here, and clearly you do additional work outside of the classroom.
Yes.
In putting this together. Let's talk about why you decided you wanted to publish this.
Well, one of the things about educating is that we always incorporate, especially at St. John's College, since we follow a Jesuit philosophy of education, it is about a call to action. And I've always been a fan of Paulo Freire, who also, in his writings, calls for action. And within the classroom, what we do is that Jesuit education is based on 3 principles, which is experience, whereby we indulge students in a process whereby they are connecting their experiences, their life experiences, with what is happening with the content in the classroom and what they're seeing in the environment and society. Reflection, whereby they're thinking about what is happening in relation to what they know and what they see in society. And lastly, action, which is where they use what they know to create something. And I think that process of authentic learning and is a process that merits analysis and merits reading from other teachers and people as a whole, because what we're talking about is the environment, and we're talking about also development. So I thought that looking at development from a critical historical perspective as how it relates to a student and how the student sees it was very important for the Belizean society, especially at this juncture where going into 2020, and with that vision, I think it was very important.
Critical thinking is a skill that we talk about very often, and as teachers, I'm sure it should be ideally what you're working towards building in your students. How do you, first of all, it's called E-Critical Thinking, so I want you to explain that a bit more, but also tie in your experience as to how you feel we're doing in how we educate in developing critical thinking skills in our young ones.
So E-Critical Thinking is basically thinking about the environment. It's environment-based, but it's also development-based. Why? Because what we've been looking at is that themes such as development are very contemporary in our society today, but yet I teach history. So for some, it may seem disconnected that we're talking about a contemporary issue in a historical context. Yet, when we were discussing particularly about the British occupation of British Honduras and the beginning of it, we began to discuss about development for what, development for who. In the context of when the British came in, the area was not empty. The Maya were way in the southern area and the western area. But we could say, okay, that area is underdeveloped. Then the British came in, cut down some trees, wanted the logwood, built a hut. Would that be development? And then we look at development for who, development for what? Did it benefit the Maya that were there at that point? And that's how the discussion basically started into the impact of development on the environment itself and how it relates to contemporary issues. In relation to critical thinking, I believe that we are in the educational system, we are in a transition. I've been through the educational system of the University of Belize, and there is a lot more focus on authentic assessments, on what they call alternative assessments, moving from the traditional of only tests and quizzes. And what I saw from this project in particular is that the students are developing a lot more skills through doing something and through analyzing and feeling important in that process. Throughout this process, I saw students, I wouldn't call it fight, but argue with each other, planning, creating reports about it. And all of these skills are things that probably a test wouldn't give you, probably a quiz wouldn't give you.
May I jump in to say this?
Yes.
I am glad that the education system is moving in that particular course. Simply because when you look at it from a historic point of view, many of us were only taught to process the information being taught to us in the classroom, but we weren't necessarily taught how to apply it in a real life setting. And I think because of that, most of us come out with this academic knowledge and not necessarily the ability to implement and co-op in a real situation like the workplace or society on a whole. You find that a lot of children are lacking the skills to be able to think critically because of that. And one would say, where does it come from? Does it come from the home? Does it come from the classroom? Perhaps it's a combination of both. Where do you see that now in the context of this particular publication?
Well, in education, there is something called the hidden curriculum, where what you are promoting is values, belief systems, and ways of thinking, morals. Yeah. And precisely that's something that I observed. My top students in relation to, the A+ students were struggling a bit with being able to lead a group or being able to cope with working with others. And working with others is also an issue. A lot of our students that are coming up tend to want to work alone because they say, look, I can do it alone, so let me just work alone. But the reality is when you get out there, you have to work with people, and you have to work with some people that are really responsible, and you have to work with people that are negligent.
So let me challenge you by saying this then, and you're the teacher in the classroom. I was once a student, and so we see things. You were once a student yourself too, so we see things from certain perspectives, right? You find that a lot of students choose to be loners in a manner of speaking because the moment you pair them up with someone else or put them in a group, you have people who coast and get the same grade. And then you will have one person who, because they want to see themselves successful in that project or undertaking, do the lion's share of the work. So you find that, okay, well, perhaps it's easier for me to go at it alone than to take on the burden of having to hold someone's hand who is lazy, who will still get the same A. And it's a mentality that they go through in life because once you form that seed there, you automatically carry on in that manner.
Well, I think in education, that's why everything is planned. So there are several stages of reports that they have to bring forward. And in that process, you have to make it clear if you do not work, you do not pass. And that's why I always make it clear to my students as well. If you report to me that they did not work the day you're presenting the project, and you did not tell me throughout the reporting process, then there's an issue there. So you need to tell me from the beginning, he's not working, I look at report 1, report 2, report 3, and you are saying that he did not work, then obviously he did not work. But if you tell me until you're presenting, then there's an issue. And again, it's all about building that skill of, look, I have to report, so I need to be accountable to what I'm doing, and I need to hold my partners accountable. And again, that's a challenge. It's a challenge to them because many of them feel like, oh, he's my friend, so I just have to give him, you know, just let him ride. But the issue arises when they feel that it's unjust because probably, let's say, for instance, they did their work, but their quality is not as high as another group, then they will feel threatened about that and bring forward what was happening.
You know, and it's such an interesting topic. I think we could go on about this for a long time. Because, you know, what Isani pointed out is a very real situation, but then I think it's removing education from what its purpose is, which is preparation for real life. And you said it so clearly before, what you deal with in real life is completely different from the controlled environment in a school. And so that's what I think is interesting about this what you're explaining with your e-critical thinking, because there's a lot of environmental talk that's taking place. There's a lot of it, you know, we have children who are the advocates for climate change and bringing a focus to it. But what you have allowed them to do is to dive into beyond just what the science books are saying to understand it for themselves. How surprised are you in what they were able to develop?
Well, let me just explain the concept itself first. So e-critical thinking is basically taking the works of persons such as Carlos Lito Quiros, which is a Belizean artist right here, pictured right here, along with a Cuban artist, Falco. And what I learned from them, because I've been learning a lot from them, is that many times I tend to think and try to find ways of explaining complex content that they summarize in one image. And so infographic is something that is coming up and is creating a lot of thinking. Why? Because it's very visual, but they're at the same time challenging a lot of the accepted norms in society. So these are world issues that they're creating. But as you can see, look at this graphic. This summarizes something that can be discussed in a complex manner, but it's one image. So what the students did is that they took those images, recreated them in
Interpret.
3D representations, and then had to interpret it from their own eyes. So this is what I think about it, and this is why I think it's important to talk about it. Of course, always looking at the concepts of development and the environment. And I was surprised by many of their reflections because honestly, as I said, I look at it from a historical perspective. And when they begin to relate it to their life and say, you know what, it relates to me because I see trees going down, I see the garbage all around.
Yeah.
And and I was looking at Mr. Williams saying his statement earlier, and I do believe it's part of culture. And we do need to switch some of these things to say, look, I am also guilty of it. And part of this project was that, to have the students say, realize I have a role in this world, and if I want to change it, I need to start with me, and I then need to tell everybody else, let's switch this culture of just throwing garbage and then blaming the government or blaming the people that pick up the garbage, and say, look, I want change, I need to start.
What you're
What
describing.
was the most surprising comments that you got from the students, that you realized that they perhaps went even deeper than you thought in analyzing the issues?
There was one image by Carlos Lito Quiroz, which is a heart with a gas pumping gas into the heart, and then there were missiles coming out of the heart. And what struck me very deep is this precisely one right there. This group in particular did an excellent job at analyzing that image, because they were saying, look, we look at World War I, World War II, and it's all world powers fighting for some sort of economic control. And in this case, the war is about the gasoline, about petroleum. And all of this war is just causing so much injustice in the world, and they're displacing people, innocent people that are trying to survive. So that, to me, the level of analysis that they reached, I did not
Yes.
expect it for, they're just 14, 15-year-olds, so second farmers. So they are thinking already, and that's what the image and the project itself wanted them to do.
When you look at something like this, though, while it encourages students to be able to think critically, it also kind of forces them to open their minds in terms of being able to think freely.
Yeah.
Because you could view this as art, and the interpretation of art could be subjective,
yes,
as subjective as it gets, right? So that while they may be able to see this as a gas pump and as several bombs being dropped or pumped out of the heart, someone else can come in with a totally different interpretation of how that is. And technically they wouldn't be wrong because it's their perspective and their
it's a subjective,
interpretation,
right?
right? Do you find that perhaps with this particular lesson that other students perhaps saw things totally differently from the channel that you would have wanted them to be able to think or carry through it?
Well, one of the things about FAIR is practically making the classroom a democratic area. I call it a liberated space. And the students had to do a presentation about it, and the class discussed. And many of them had some contrasting views about it. And in fact, the process was that, because within the group, you have 5 to 6 persons in the group. And some of them had some contrasting views about the image itself, but they came to one understanding and placed an analysis to it. But I think that's the beauty of the process, because you will realize that from one particular fact, and we're talking, I relate it to history again, from one particular fact you may have 20 interpretations. And who am I in this case to tell one you're right, you're wrong, you're the truth, you're a false interpretation?
At the heart of this, from what I'm seeing, is that there is a symbiosis between development and environment.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, we tend to want to separate the two without seeing the actual effect one has on the other.
And history too.
I was
That's
gonna
3
say,
things.
can I just tell you, I think history, now, I mean, you triggered my critical thinking skills. But I'm watching these images and I'm reading some of the captions, and I just think to myself, you said earlier history and what are you doing with environment? I mean, let's look at the environmental changes we're talking about. Now, it's going back to our history. We're talking about vats and market bags and, you know, everything that was developed based on convenience. We are stepping back from it because it's not as good for the environment as we thought.
It's not only about
There's some history there.
It's not only about convenience. It's also okay. Let me backtrack a bit about the reasons for colonization. Let's say first, the Spanish came into America with saving souls. That was their first excuse. Then you have the other European powers coming in to civilize people, because according to them,
So from missionary and conversion to civilization.
then you have now the spread of democracy and progress and development. And it continues to be sort of excuses to come in and tell people what to do and undermine what their lifestyles were. For instance, I was looking at some news from Guatemala, where the full community has went back to using plantain leaves for wrapping and all of those things. That is something that is traditional. It was there. It was undermined because something else came in. And something else that was more profitable came in.
Single-use plastics came in. So
Yes,
we departed from what was eco-friendly and biodegradable, which was the banana leaves, right?
Yes.
Valid point.
But even
Not
so,
convenience, but more a matter of somebody, somebody brings in something new and novel.
It's a commercial.
And tells you it's good, and they're making money
but
from
your
it.
culture is bad.
Yeah.
What you're doing
What
is bad.
I'm
So-
doing is
So it
antiquated.
isn't efficient. But we're going back to it now.
Yeah.
The only difference is that we're going back to that with a brand attached to it.
So it's still commercial.
Yes.
It's almost a murder of
Yeah, so it's still commercial, but we're going back to some of those traditional
It's
things.
all in the packaging, bro.
Exactly. So again, it comes back to the concepts of development, the environment, and how it relates to history, and how it's been evolving over time. So again, what I was trying to do, and I think to an extent I was successful, is allow students to think about it. Just think, and I always reach into the class and say, because some of them got frustrated with the images, I won't deny that some of them were like, what is this trying to tell me? I spoke to my father, and my father is saying that he can't get it, you understand?
What kind of history project
yeah,
is
like,
this?
and
Call the principal and say, do you know what your teacher's yeah.
No, but some of them got frustrated, and to an extent, I was happy that they got frustrated.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted. I wanted them to start to open their minds and say, okay, probably my little space of the world right here isn't all the world at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge, is because we cocoon ourselves so much that our world only exists in an immediate sphere or circle around us, but it's so vast and so much wider than that. But we limit ourselves to the persons that we interact with daily, or the things that we know because it's right there in front of us.
Yeah.
We don't go beyond or outside of the box, so to speak.
So you put this all into a publication.
Yeah, it is.
And it's where is it available? How can people see it so they can find out more?
Well, this publication is electronic.
Okay.
So again, it's a team of people that are working. I must give credit to Carlos, Lito Quiroz, Falco, of course, Alex Falco Chan, and Yasser Musa, who is the designer, and I just do the research and part of the write-up. And of course, get the project going for the students. Yeah, and then
the idea.
so this is all the projects from Second Farm at St. John's College. So it is all a group of people working together. And the project itself and the publication itself is also serves as an inspiration for our students.
Yeah.
They like you see these pictures here, I showed them in class and they are like, whoa, I am on a public, I'm on a book, my
And now
picture
it's
is
on
there. Yeah. So
Even
like,
though you were complaining about the project.
But
No, and I think this is such a great project, and I think what you have done is it's forcing the kids, and even forcing us here in this conversation to think beyond face value, and we really need to encourage more people in our system. They went home and they probably had to challenge the parents, because parents can be very hands-on with projects, to think beyond just the norm and looking deeper at cause and effect and our own personal contributions. So definitely, are you going to continue it? Is it replicated beyond second form?
well, it's a model already. It's out
Yeah.
there, so anybody can just use it, and that's
Yeah.
precisely what the publication is all about too. So it tells you a background to it, what was the research about the topic, and then it tells you a detailed description of what the project was and how the students carried it out. And then it gives you the project or the reflections from the students and the pictures of what they created. So it's a guide that anybody can just take and say, okay, I want to replicate it at my school. And they can just read it, follow it, and they should have the... I'm not sure if it will be the similar outcome, but at least a guided outcome to it.
Well, Delmer, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about it. Where can they access the
It's
ebook?
at the Image Factory website.
Image Factory website.
And I also, it's posted on social media as well. So you can go to my page and it's there. So you
Nice.
can just, click on it and it takes you to the slides.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about the work you've been doing with the kids and their
you.
fantastic work as well.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
Thank
We're
you.
going to go ahead and take a break. And I think you're going to like this one because we're actually going to be talking about wrapping presents and using creative objects that we have on hand. So that's coming up after the break. Please stay tuned. And we are back in just a few more days left before Christmas. This is one of the most important things that you have to pay attention to before that day approaches. We are talking about creative gift wrapping. And here with us, we have a very creative young woman herself. She creates clothes, but she also does Christmas decorations. We have Ronel Requena from San Ignacio back with us.
Hi, good morning.
Hi. And you have a little company that does some decorating as well.
Yes, it's called Creative Shift. So we do decorating and probably like props and centerpieces for parties and events.
Nice. And today we challenged you with being able to come up with some creative gift wrapping.
Challenge accepted.
All right. So let me start with the first question. Do you normally wrap your presents?
Of course, it's like the best part of the season.
It's
The most
actually the wrapping.
unstressful part of the season. I must correct.
That is true. I think, you know, more and more we've been moving away from gift wrapping, and I think we need to go back.
Right? Get creative and use what you have at home. I cannot stress enough. We can always use what we can find at home, and you'd be surprised by how beautiful it end up looking.
right.
And making it customized, isn't that worth more?
And the
This is going to be
gift
interesting.
under the tree, you're going to use your creativity, don't worry. We
We're
will
gonna
challenge
give you
you
ideas.
as well.
You know what my assignment was last night? I said, okay, I am responsible for the gifts. You're responsible for the gift wrapping.
Teamwork.
Because I can't wrap my mind around being able to find something that works other than the box or the actual packaging that the
Right.
gift comes in. So I learned
You
a
have
thing
to
or
do
two
like
this morning.
Marlene. She puts up boxes all year round. So when Christmas comes,
So, okay, so I'm a huge, I think I've said it on the show before, so it's not so bad. I'm a huge advocate of wrapping presents. I think gift bags, if I give you a gift bag, man, I'm sorry, but I just think the best part of a present is opening it. And, you know, you just don't have to you open the gift bag. That's just, no.
Gotta make it
So I
fun.
collect boxes year round. And if I find a unique size box or shape, I get it. So that when this wrapping season comes around,
You already
I
have
can
your equipment
wrap my
and your
presents.
material. Yeah.
all right,
So, yeah.
let's start. So we have different shapes and sizes because
Okay.
not everything come in a box.
Yes.
So what we'll do first is I brought this because me and you know not everybody could put up their paper and make
Exactly.
sure it's
So they
stay
get
neat,
crumbly,
right?
yes,
Yes.
this
So,
happens.
and then usually people throw them away.
Okay,
We're not throwing it away.
good.
So what we're gonna do is we are mash it up more.
Okay.
So here you go.
That's your job, Istan.
Yes.
Let's go. Take out
Mash
your
it,
frustrations of the day.
Just crumble it. Crumble it as
Like you
much
mean
as you
And
can.
Like I'm angry?
Yes, mash it up.
All right.
Okay, then
Good.
open it
Put it
back.
up back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now undo all your wrath. So you really encourage people to just find something that they have at home and use.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
because I love when people take the time to wrap the gift and put the ribbon and you know, and then you see their faces
Yeah.
when you're unwrapping and you actually point out, oh, it's a nice wrap. It's
Yeah.
nicely wrapped.
Yeah.
And the cards, I still love cards.
Handwritten cards.
Yes.
Handwritten cards. Not the generic stuff that
Here you go. I'm gonna spread it out.
All right, so you spread out. So, oops, the wrapping paper got trapped under a whole lot of other stuff in your house.
Okay.
You don't have to throw it
And
out. Let's start
Marlene,
there. Okay.
Let's start wrapping.
Okay. So we got a box. We put the item in the box, or maybe it's already come in a box.
Yes.
Okay.
And we start wrapping.
In this case, some lucky person is getting a fixed wireless phone.
But you know, I can't miss the fact that you're using black and it's Christmas.
Yeah.
It's trending.
Yeah.
Minimalism and the rustic styles are trending.
Okay.
So we wanted something different. So
Okay.
you get to wrap it. Here you go.
So it's okay if it's crumbled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Black
Make
and
it
crumbled.
beautiful.
Do you want me to cut it across here?
Yeah. All right. Here you go.
So we're gonna do this. All right,
And it doesn't matter if you don't cut straight, because
Yeah.
you can always fold it.
that's right.
go. You hold it there. Get some tape.
So you get a black crumpled up paper gift. What are you thinking, Isani?
I'm making the weirdest connection at the moment.
Tell me.
I'll be honest with you. I'm thinking of reusing this black crumpled up paper and of reusing this red or maroon ribbon. I'm thinking of a black cake.
There you go.
That's where my mind automatically goes.
All right. Yeah. Let me be your tape girl. That'll make your life a little bit easier.
A black cake.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
I know, right?
All right, here we go. We got one. So what you do, because the edges aren't straight, because I don't cut straight, is you just fold the edges so that they're straight.
Yes.
There you go. Trick number one. Maybe I could not make the tape. Yeah. Go away. All right, ready. There you go. Uh-huh.
And this is our pretty side.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do now is, this is my best friend right now. It's
Okay.
mounting tape, so it's spray. It's spray in a can.
Okay.
Wow.
It's like
glue in a can.
Oh, it's adhesive.
Yes.
Okay.
So spray it there.
The top?
Yeah. Put as much as you can.
I'm not as precise as I'm sure you are.
As much as you can. All right. And then we'll sprinkle some of these nice glue on it. Beads.
Oh
This
my.
is turning out to be an expensive gift wrap.
It's gonna look expensive.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow. Oh, that makes a huge difference. Oh, don't press
And
it?
this, yes, we gotta press it so it can stick. And these beads, we got it from a dress that a bride took, and it had too much embellishment,
Okay.
and she wanted it off, so I put it up.
And now you used it.
Yes. Try it one more time, spray, so we can do it again.
I didn't put enough spray. All right, there we go. See clearly.
No, it looked like
Now
a
imagine
cake.
you give a present like that. They'll say, wow, Isani, you really love me.
You really
Gone above and
tried.
beyond.
I know.
And then you put the bow.
Okay.
You wrap it
How?
underneath.
Underneath? So you just want a bow on top.
Okay, this way.
Are you gonna do the crisscross one?
Yes.
All right.
Here.
This is how simple this is.
Yeah.
Hook it under,
And then,
over to the top.
okay, you do the bow, and then I could cut it for you.
You gonna cut it first or do the bow first?
I will cut it.
Yeah.
And this is super easy.
Okay, so sometimes I kind of hook into this one.
Okay, so there, and then okay, hold it there tight. You put your finger, and you tighten it. There, see? Look expensive already.
And it started with crumbled up. Isani,
Black
you look
paper.
impressed. Look at that.
Yeah, this is interesting.
And then now you can put,
In a now sort of gothic kind of way, but yeah.
Yeah, well, imagine if
Interesting.
you do have a teenager who's gothic. She'd be
and
like,
then
yeah.
you put a sweet, and you do another knot there.
Oh, it just gets cooler and cooler.
Yeah, and then you can put in a chocolate right on the top.
Yeah.
There,
That's some serious embellishment too, though.
there.
There you go.
Nice. Look at that.
All right.
So we went from black crumbled up paper to this fancy looking gift. I like
Those
that.
those are the different phases of the gift wrapping, right? From black crumpled up paper to black cake to gothic to something that is completely amazing for what? Little or nothing at all,
Yeah,
right?
because this is, I mean, you may have beads around the house. It could be from something that you have discarded. You'll definitely have candy canes, most likely.
Yeah,
And
chocolates.
just pull out that
Yes.
old crumbled up paper and you can still do something with it.
And on to the next. Can we get
Brown
that next
paper? We're really gonna use
Yes.
brown paper?
Which one do you want?
Okay.
the red one?
Okay.
All right.
Brown
Let's
paper.
get this pretty one in the
Make this-
corner. All right.
We do the same thing we did for that one. We're just not gonna mash that one up.
So you're gonna wrap it.
We'll wrap this one. Can you cut it there?
Okay.
This one will be a little bit fun.
Fun.
Yeah, we'll be making a little Christmas tree out of the ribbon.
Wow. That's gonna be
Okay.
nice.
So Isani, you are going to do this one. You're gonna show that men can be creative too.
I will make an attempt.
And they're not only there to buy the gifts.
I know. Let's go. And you can always say, yes, I know how to do it, but that doesn't mean I want to do it. That's always.
See, the beauty of it is that when you go to these department stores,
Did you bring us cookies
could
too?
get them
oh,
to-
no.
We're
you could
using
get
it
them
as
to do the
props.
gift wrapping, right?
The what?
So the beauty of it is when you go to these department stores, you get them to do the gift
Not
wrapping.
in Belize. I very rarely find people who do
Okay.
gift wrapping now.
Yeah,
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 it's a
okay,
more
take
DIY project, right?
Tape, Isani, you have the scissors in front of you? Yeah.
Okay. Scissors is here.
And the
The,
tape is
the
right
tape
here.
is right here.
Oh, well, we kind of did that one this way here.
All right, let's cut this up.
in the pieces. And at my house, we never have the little tape. This is the only tape we own.
Really?
So, yes. So we make it work.
Wow.
Another piece.
There, yes. One
Yeah.
more for this side.
See, I go overboard with tape. I
They
actually,
have the ones that's decorated.
yeah. Well, I don't. I love that it's hard to open.
Sorry,
There.
the tip is all on my finger.
That's it.
All right.
So we have a nice.
Okay. So it's like covering your books. We're going back to that day. You did this little style here. We didn't miss that. How did you do that?
We folded it.
So you just didn't make it go to the edge. You
Yeah.
brought it a little bit closer. All right.
So now we're gonna make a Christmas tree.
Let's see how this works.
So now here we'll start.
Do we need
taping it. No, we'll be using the glue.
Okay. That's all you.
So I'll help you with the first one.
But if you don't have a glue gun, can you use tape?
Yes, you can use tape.
Okay. Or a stapler?
Yeah, but I think the stapler will lose. So
Okay.
Or regular, well, other glue, like the
okay, put your
regular
hand
white
here.
glue.
I don't think it will stick with the fabric from the ribbon.
Okay.
Okay, here. And then you hold
We're
it
gonna
there.
make a Christmas tree.
Turn it so you can see it. And then we'll get to decorate the Christmas tree.
Okay.
There.
Oh, I see what you're doing. So you widen the base, but you come back to the same center each time.
That's where the star will go.
Ooh.
This is all sorts of creative.
I know, right? Yeah, but imagine you kid, you get a gift like that.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Okay, your glue gun right here.
Get a dab there. And this is the base for our Christmas tree.
Okay,
Wow.
using
Here.
brown paper and red ribbon.
And you can use all sorts of color ribbons.
Yeah.
The green ones, they have the silver ones.
Yeah.
But at home I only had red because we're using what we already own.
Yeah.
So we'll start decorating the tree.
Okay.
So we have little rhinestones here,
Yeah. Okay.
and we just start sticking them
With the glue gun?
with the glue.
Okay. Here you go. Isani, remember this is your project. Go decorate your tree.
And this is a fun part. You can you can have your kids helping. I have a nephew and he's really creative. But then at the end of the day, he wants to wrap everything. he brings his gun, his little cars, because we're wrapping, so he wants to like finish the project.
Yeah.
And if there's paper left,
Yeah.
he'll bring his toys to wrap.
Yeah. I love the extra care that goes into doing this. And so what we're using here, where would you find these little, or what options would you give to people?
You can get the rhinestones right at Simon Kwan.
Okay.
And then they have the ones like these that already come with the glue.
Oh,
It makes life
I was
much
gonna
easier.
say.
There. See, and they stick.
Ah, yeah, that one is easier.
And it's much cleaner.
Yeah.
And you can put as much stuff as you want.
Okay.
And then we have to do the star.
And how are we making the star? Just cutting out a star?
Yes, we're cutting out a star out of foamy. Foamy. You can get this at Simon Kwan as well. And it's easy, quick thing.
We'll take your word for it.
There you go.
There's your star.
And then you put it up
Oh my
here.
gosh,
with
that's
the
so
same
pretty.
glue, like for a little girl.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
There you go.
Right over here. That is so cute. Oh, Isani, if you don't give your daughter a gift like that, then I'm gonna be so disappointed.
You're raising the bar exceptionally high for me, Marlene.
I mean, it's brown paper.
It forces me to have to be extra creative on Christmas Eve.
And very sure.
Well, then,
Okay, so now we're looking at
so we're wrapping a smaller one.
a small box.
And we're doing almost the same thing that we did here, but we do it a little bit more sophisticated.
Ooh, okay.
So if we're giving away a nice watch in that small little
Yes.
box.
Nice.
All right.
So with this, and then these paper are so cheap. They're like $2.90 for the
For the
roll.
brown,
All
yeah.
right.
For the roll, or if you have left from the
Last
summer
year.
from,
Oh, from
Wrapping the
books.
kids'
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
you get to save them and you reuse them. So we'll start folding. You could do like 3 to 4 folds depending on how wide the box is.
Oh, that's cool. So you're doing like tiers of.
And then you put it on the box. Make sure it's centered. And then you can start wrapping it. But if you don't want it to loose,
You put a piece of
you
tape
tape it down, yes.
on the inside.
And then you start wrapping.
Look at that. Just by folding the paper.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a bow, but we'll use the twine.
Oh. See, this is great for your environmental friend.
Yeah.
You'll say, oh, you thought of me even in the wrapping paper.
Even in the wrapping, everything is eco-friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially right now that we're shifting, being more environmentally conscious. And then what I was watching the other day is they give like ideas of what you can do with the stuff, like wrapping paper or even this brown paper after the season. So you know when you go buy your groceries and you get your cilantro or your cabbage and you don't want it to get ruined fast in the fridge.
Yeah.
You can say you unwrap your gift and you wrap your veggies in it so it can stay fresh in the fridge.
For longer.
Yes.
That's something new for me.
Or
It does
use
work. I've used paper towel, but now I can use wrapping paper.
wrapping paper.
Yeah.
And then they have, or using it as shopping list or cleaning in the house instead of throwing it away.
So you said that you have your company Creative Shifts. Now, if I just want to drop off my gifts and have you do it,
You'd be surprised.
I'm sure people ask.
Yeah, some people don't find themselves creative, so we do pretty much everything, even like kids projects.
Oh, wow.
And get it done.
I hope they at least do the work part of it and just leave
Yeah,
you for
they-
the final touches.
Yeah, they send everything they need, and then we just make life easier for them.
Ah,
But,
Where were you in primary school when I needed that pen?
your father would never have allowed you.
My mom too.
They wouldn't have found out.
But you know, I think especially for open days, it's like the poster boards and things like that. That takes a lot of time
Yeah.
Takes a lot
while
of
they
time.
work on the project.
And here you go.
Look at that, looking so fancy. And all you did was fold the paper.
Yeah.
And then you can do the honors of putting it in the ribbon,
Okay.
the
What do you-
twine.
Long or short?
We'll
Like,
do it
do you want the bow that way or that
this way, and then we wrap it from under.
way? Okay, go ahead.
There you go. I'll hold it for you.
So we'll do it this way, on top.
There.
Mm-hmm.
Twist it.
Yeah. And then long. And then it's not long enough.
It's not long enough. Let's- There you go.
Okay. So we'll go up here. Twist. Stay. Twist.
Tighten it.
And then now. Now I feel guilty.
Getting ideas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Eh. Look at that.
And you make it a little smaller. And there you go. And you can put a candy cane.
This is the extreme eco-friendly version of the
There you
the
go.
gift item, right?
It's cool. Here you go.
You have your expensive Mont Blanc pens in here, or you have your Rolex watch,
Yes.
right? Biodegradable
So we
wrap.
have. What's this? We'll use this as. Let's say you're giving a bottle of something.
Oh,
or
okay.
Your gift comes in a shape like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So something tall and cylinder, like a tall cylinder. Okay.
Yes. Instead of getting it in a gift bag, people
Okay.
usually get.
Yeah.
They wanna make it easier, but we want to wrap
So
it.
let's say it's a bottle of wine, or for example, instead of
Yes.
getting a wine tag.
A wine. So you hold it
Or
here.
a small cologne or something, right?
Yeah. So hold it here and hold it
I love that she's just using what's right in front of her.
here, and then we start folding. Okay. We start folding, and we'll be needing tape as we go.
Okay. I'll be
And
your tape girl.
twist, and we continue folding,
There's one.
and then we get a nice little style going on there.
So you're just pleating the bottom as you move around the curve
Yes.
of the base.
Okay, I got it now. And you continue,
Look at that.
and you just, as you go, you just need to tighten it. Until you meet the side where you started from.
There it is,
And
yeah.
there you go.
Here.
We will
That's
need
nice.
some of this.
Okay. You do need tape?
Yeah. piece of that.
And you're gonna wrap it around that top.
Yeah.
It shows that enough thought was given into wrapping the bottle of rum popo. That's
Or just how efficient you are with the items you have
Yeah.
around your house. All right.
Yes.
And we bow?
Yes, you do a bow, and then we'll put this in it.
Oh, this is pretty. Where does this come from?
They're ornaments for your Christmas
on the
tree.
Christmas tree. Wow.
Ah, look at that. It just went from brown paper to wow.
Yeah.
Just the snow. I know, I make my bow too big.
It's okay. Here you go.
That bottle of wine just got so much prettier, right?
That Sorrel wine just got an
Yeah.
upgrade.
Or Traveler's Rum Popo.
Yeah.
And then now we will do another box.
Okay.
Let's say we have a little piece of this left.
Okay.
We will still use the brown paper.
Okay. Yeah, that happens when you just have like,
A little piece
but not
left,
enough to cover it.
right?
Yeah.
We will still use that piece.
Okay.
Won't be left behind. So we will wrap it with the brown paper.
So I can only imagine what the trees look like, what the gifts look like under your tree.
I don't have a tree.
Ah, but you do have presents.
We have presents, yes, but we
Okay.
don't really put up a tree.
Well, you've been busy with all your wedding dresses.
Yes, and we have this thing that like my mom grew us up. If you want to see a tree, go to grandma's house.
I like
And
your
we
mom.
even have this thing that we're like, we take the gifts at my grandma's house to put it under her tree. Because we're going to go there anyways for Christmas.
Yeah.
It's been
I
a tradition.
do like that, yeah.
See, if I had suggested that at home, I'd be immediately written off as the Grinch. You have to put up the Christmas tree. It's expected.
Especially if you have little kids.
Yeah, if you have kids in the house, I think that's really where.
When you have kids in the house, they're the ones who get behind you from December 1st to put up the Christmas
yeah.
Right?
Because the sooner you see the tree, the sooner
tree. You start feeling the spirit, right?
the gifts are
Yeah,
coming. What
the
are you
gifts
talking about?
You wait for December. People don't even wait for
For
November to
settlement day,
finish
yeah, I
trip.
know.
Yeah.
There.
Okay.
And then, in the meantime, can you cut a strip of this nice wrapping paper?
Like a white strip, a thin strip,
A thin strip?
like that?
Yes. So we'll show
So
you
now
how to
we
use
only-
that little piece that's left.
You can. All right.
So what we're gonna do, we're gonna fold it to have a nicer edge.
Because I'm incapable of cutting it straight.
We all are. And then we put it there.
It stands
Get
out
a
against
tape.
the.
Yes.
Nice,
Get
nice.
some tape. And then we cut that piece there.
Tape it here. Oh, what do you want?
We'll cut this.
Oh. Well, let's just get this one under control first. And then we'll give you this one.
This is a easy way to use that little piece of paper that's left on the roll. And see? And then we'll use this and wrap it in the middle. There.
Oh. Meanwhile,
These
the rest
are-
of us have just been seeing the last strip of wrapping paper and saying, "Ugh, now I gotta throw it away."
Right?
Yeah.
No, we'll find use
These
for
are
it.
ideas that I don't know where you come up with these from. It would never cross my mind.
All right,
But
put
it's
your finger
exceptional.
there. And we'll make a nice bowl. And then we'll put another one of this in there. you go. Using that last piece of wrapping paper that's left on the roll.
Cool. So nothing really goes to waste, right? You try to utilize as much of what's
Nothing
left.
goes to waste.
Yeah.
We say at my house, we're like, we're hoarders because we're like, there'll be that time you'll need it.
Yeah.
You'll need it.
Yeah.
You'll never know when you'll need it.
Right?
Yeah.
And there you go.
Well, when you're as creative as you all are, then you definitely will find a use for it.
Yes.
And at least you've shown us some ways that we can. I mean, I never thought of brown paper. I figured.
Or crumbled paper.
crumbled paper,
especially
yeah,
the
yeah.
crumbled paper.
Black
Yeah.
And we put it on the pile for the tree.
Wow. All right.
And do we have time for another one?
No, we're out of time.
Okay.
We are out of time. But we do want to say thank you, of course. I know we do have a clip that we have to show you, actually. That's what we wanted to say. So in Gimme 5, they gave away some shopping sprees.
Okay.
And we tagged along for the shopping spree. So we're actually going to take a look at another one of those right now. But in the meantime, Ronelle, thank you so much for coming in.
welcome.
These were some great ideas. Creative Ships, you're
Yes.
on Facebook?
Yes, we're on Facebook and also on Instagram.
Okay. That's where you can find them and make some contact. And definitely we encourage you to wrap some presents this year, if at least just a few, right?
Yes, and include the kids. It's the most fun part of Christmas.
All right. We'll take that break and we'll be back in a few.
We are here with Mrs. Robinson in Sunny City, Belmopan, the winner of the Gimme 5 $500 shopping spree. Mrs. Robinson, how do you feel?
Well, I'm super excited.
Okay, how many tickets did you put in the barrel?
I put 20 tickets in the barrel.
Only 20. Wow, you're very lucky this Christmas.
Yeah, thanks to Channel 5 and Sunny City for making my Christmas merry and beautiful.
Do you have that shopping list ready?
Of course I do.
Well, let's go to the shopping on then. So, Mrs. Robinson, how do you feel now that you got that $500 worth of grocery for the Christmas?
Well, I feel extremely happy, as I said before, and it's a blessing for myself, and thanks to Channel 5 and Sunny City for allowing me to shop here at the supermarket. And I would like to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to Channel 5 and the management and staff of Sunny City Supermarket. Once again, thank you.
I mean, seasonal greetings on behalf of Sunny City Supermarket. Wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
With over 100 years of
Signing up for Smart's broadband got easy.
And we're back, and we want to say thank you for tuning in. We've definitely gone a bit over time today.
Yes, we have.
But it was worth it. We started off with a conversation about looking at crime over the past year and looking forward to what we hope to be able to see from the police department. Definitely, we want to thank them for coming in and having that conversation with us. To Delmer Zib, of course, challenging his students to critical thinking.
And gift wrapping.
Yeah.
It's Christmas time. You want to get in the creative spirit of being able to package your gifts because the impression goes a long way, right?
Well, I'm hoping, Isan, is at least one gift under your tree looks like this Christmas.
I will try my endeavor best.
I do hope so. Because it was so easy. It really, what I loved about it, Ronelle came and she just used stuff that you would have around your house. Because that's a critical point. It's not about going out and paying for gift bags or, having to buy lots of wrapping paper. You can find stuff at home you can use and you can be creative with it. And look at how beautiful these gifts are. So thank you to her for coming in all the way from San Ignacio. And of course, you can follow her page, Creative Shifts, on Facebook, and you can see the other work that she does as well. But we're out of time. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Drop me a line at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your Christmas Eve right.
That's right. Christmas Eve tomorrow. Until then, have a great day and we'll see you soon.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.